What is up, guys? Vincenzo from home of Milan coming back at you once again furthermore. And today we got a very interesting episode, but before we get into it, make sure you guys are following us on all socials at Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and bunches, all at home of Milan. So without any further ado, guys, let's get into this. So personally, I was not optimistic going into this match whatsoever. Despite us being on a 2-game win streak, from the first couple minutes, Atalanta was dominating and giving us a hard time. CDK missing a couple missed opportunities, missing a sitter right in front of the goal, and then obviously that one-on-one with Mike Magnon that was eventually offside, but regardless, he missed a couple opportunities, but later in the game he would come in to haunt us. But yeah, Magnon came up big in this game. It could have been a very bad game for us, 5-6 goals for Atalanta, but he really helped us. But regardless, it just wasn't enough. Atalanta scored their first goal through a very lucky deflection, in my opinion, because of Tomori, but I thought he did well to defend. I just think it was an unlucky scenario that happened, but it was just super lucky, but it took us until the stroke of halftime. We were given a corner, and we take it, and Giroud does beautifully to get up and score the header, which makes it 1-1 right before halftime. And that brings up his goal tally to 8 goals in 12 games. So that's pretty big for Giroud, considering his age and all that and just how this team is playing. But we'll get onto that later. 10 minutes into the second half, Atalanta score thanks to a CDK assist. And the defending in this game was absolutely horrendous. We just let them dog walk us in, this second half and really the whole game, in my opinion. Even at 2-1, Atalanta were still looking to score more goals, and I want to tip my hat to Ademola Lookman because he was on a mission to make our lives absolutely miserable, and giving Calabria a run-in for his money and kept him on a leash the whole entire game. So yeah, I just want to tip my hat to Lookman because he played absolutely phenomenal against us, but we couldn't get anything going, so much so that Chukwueze came off for Benacer, who it was really nice to see him get a couple minutes under his belt, but he's still not match fit. You can kind of tell, but again, it just still wasn't enough to get us going forward. For Benacer, he has to play as our number 6 because we are crucially missing that piece of the puzzle in the midfield because Reinders is not a 6. Reinders is not a 6. And Pioli insists that he plays in this scenario. And we saw it in this game that we saw Musa and Loftus-Cheek really condense on that right-hand side, and it left the left wide open. And this is why Lookman just had such an easy job going for Calabria, because our midfield is just not cohesive. These guys just don't talk to each other. And, we see it on the pitch because there's so many gaps to go, and then we have to compensate. And on top of that, as weak as our defense already is, it doesn't help that our midfield isn't, coming back and helping us out. And this just happens to, we have to keep our shape. And that's clearly not happening because we're conceding goals and we're just leaking out the back. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And this comes down to the hands of Stefano Pioli. But we'll get on to him later because he has a lot of things to explain. Later in the game, we saw the introduction of Jovic, and in my opinion, I think he should have started because in these last 2 matches, he got that, not assist, but, he helped get that penalty against Fiorentina for us to get the goal. And also he got a goal and assist against Frosinone. So I think he was warranted a start because he's been on some decent form. So, of course, that's just Pioli knocking down that player's confidence, just benching him after 2 great performances in our last 3 games. But 8 minutes of Jovic being on, he scored a goal. So he was in the right place at the right time, getting into that open space. So a massive, big shout out to Luka Jovic because he's been playing pretty decent in these last couple games, despite us, being terrible. But after the goal, it looked like the pendulum was swinging in our favor. And, we really were attacking more and, we were looking more of a threat. But in the 90th minute, Calabria received a second yellow for the most clumsy tackle that I've seen him make. And we were punished from then, right? In a moment in the season where this team is riddled with injuries out the back, our captain, who should 1,000% know better, put his team in a hole much deeper than it is now. And it seemed bad enough that we were playing with players out of position, right? It was Teo at center back, it was Florenzi at left back, and sometimes we saw Musa drop into that right back slot. And now we don't even have a right back anymore, right? So there's a lot to figure out in these next couple games, especially against Monza, who's a tricky side with Palladino and, Colpani and, their, little tricksters that they have. But this brings our red card tally up to 6. We've had 6 red cards this season, and we're not even halfway through the year. This team has absolutely zero discipline and zero leadership, and it's just not good enough. And there's no leadership to guide this team in a certain direction when the going gets tough, and it's clear as day to see. And this has to be on the hands of Pioli. He has to tell these players what to do in these certain types of scenarios and really control the game, because at a time where it looked like we could maybe get a winner, right, we do the complete opposite. So that just lands into Pioli's hands, and surely enough, Atalanta go on to score the winning goal thanks to a back heel from Luis Muriel in the 5th minute of injury time. So once again, defensively, this team is in shambles. And this team has a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of blood on Pioli's hands. Now, more than ever, I think Pioli is in this hot seat, because in a fixture list that after Napoli was supposed to be, on paper, supposed to be easy, we grabbed 7 points in 5 games, losing to an Udinese team that hasn't won all season, still can't win, right? And drawing to a Lecce team who, let's be honest, we got bailed out by the referee, and we were supposed to lose that game. And an 8th place Atalanta side, respectfully, who we lost against right now. So the preparation for these games is absolutely terrible, right? And I get it. There's an injury crisis going on. We don't have Leao. We don't have, our defense. We don't have, so-and-so. When you have this injury crisis, you have to show that there's at least a light at the end of the tunnel. And it looks like there's not, right? Because in all this chaos, I get it. We're still in 3rd place, right? And yes, there is a massive, massive gap between our rivals, Inter and Juve, that is now extended to 7 and 9 points. And those two teams are head and shoulders above us, and it's not even close. But we can only play with the cards that we're dealt with. And despite the injuries and despite the issues, we're not in a spot like Napoli. Napoli sitting outside the top 5. And I look at their situation, and I look at us, I'm like, could be a lot worse, right? So it's just, a lot to take in, and, it seems like the house is on fire, right? I feel like Twitter and all of social media, the newspaper, Gazzetta, they're making it seem like the house is on fire, we're burning down, and, it's a whole mess. I think just only the smoke alarms have gone off. And of course, I get it. There's a lot, to take in and everything like that. But I think everybody wants Pioli's head on a spike. And I understand the situation, right? But the worst thing that we can do is make a massive decision like this. And because at the moment, there are no good coaches available. I understand there's Tuchel available, there's Conte. Obviously, there's talks of De Zerbi coming in, and that's a dream in itself. But when you get a coach like that, I think it takes a while for their style to be adapted into any team, right? So it takes a while for it to implement. And at that type of move, I think it should happen in the summertime. I think that's the best time, because then you can bring in players that they want and, so on and so forth. But there's been a lot of talks of Abate and Zlatan coming back and taking over as manager and caretaker of the team, which I wouldn't hate, for reasons being that I think they're 2 great leaders. I think they would really inspire and motivate this team to kind of get the ball rolling again. And we would have, 2 great leaders in the locker room. But I just can't see Abate being this tactical genius and maestro that people think that he is, right? We got to remember, he's the manager of the youth team, right? Youth team football is a complete 180 turn to, pro top Serie A football, right? And I just don't think he's proven himself at this level yet. But if the going does get tough, and let's say, we're outside the top 4, why not roll the dice and, give Abate this chance to, maybe prove himself. And, if he proves himself at this top level and, really drives his team onto some greater things, I'll happily hold up my hands and say I was wrong. But at the moment, I don't think that we should rush in to a decision that might later bite us in the ass, because at the moment, despite everything being on, I don't think Pioli has dealt with the situation the best, but I don't think that we're completely in a situation where this decision needs to happen, because again, we're still in third place. As long as we kind of keep the gap close and maybe potentially make a push for the title, I don't think sacking Pioli is in our best interest, just because of those reasons. But I think we'll find out what happens in this Champions League game against Newcastle, because again, it's going to take a lot for us to go through, right? We still need to win against Newcastle. We can't draw, or obviously we can't lose. And we still need Borussia Dortmund to beat PSG, which, let's be real, Dortmund have nothing to play for, and Dortmund's last couple games have been in absolute shambles. Dortmund's in fifth place in the Bundesliga, and PSG are kind of, a little shaky, but let's be real. With the Dortmund team who has nothing to play for, PSG are going to win, right? And I think we have a chance against Newcastle, because Newcastle sit in eighth. They haven't really been playing the best football. So I think there could maybe be an upset for us, and I think maybe we can make something happen. But I don't want this team playing Europa League football, because then that just takes away, again, not only the fitness, but that kind of, risks us of, getting injuries and, stuff like that. So I would much rather have us focus on Serie A football than Serie A football and Europa League football. And that's just more things that we need to worry about and put on our plate that we don't need. So I think that'll do it for this episode, you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I want to know what you guys have to think about the whole Milan situation. Do you think the house is burnt down? Do you think a lot of people are overreacting? Or I just want to know what you guys think, your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao ragazzi.